Uh, Once again, thank you, my viewers. I'm really pleased that most people out there really are anxious to learn more about deafness or hearing impairment. Now, one of my subscribers, one of my viewers has posted a question, a very good question here. I want us to shed some light on it. Now, my viewer is asking, we've got persons who are deaf and they speak. On the other hand, we've got persons who are deaf and they cannot speak. So my viewer is asking, how come this deaf person is able to speak and the other one is not able to speak? Now, I wish to shed some light on the same. Now, whether a deaf person speaks or not depends on at what age this person here acquired this condition. Number one, there are people who acquire deafness at birth and before they acquire language. Like I discussed in my first video, speech and language are acquired socially. That is, when a child is born with very good hearing, this child begins to hear sounds in the environment. Then he begins making sense out of the sounds. He begins associating sounds with items and actions. And that way, a child learns how to speak. So when a child is born with that condition, that is, a child is born deaf, that is, from the time the child is born, this child is deaf. This child is not perceiving any sound from the environment. It will be very difficult for this child here to develop speech because no sound, this child is hearing, therefore, this child here will not develop speech. On the other hand, we've got post-lingual deafness. This is deafness that is acquired after a child has developed speech and language. So let me say a child is born, this child is not deaf. And then somewhere along the way, maybe at the age of 2.5 or 3 years, this child falls sick, and because of that sickness, this child loses the hearing ability, or maybe an accident or any condition that can bring about that. So you'll notice, before this child lost the power to hear, already this child had been exposed to environmental sounds. This child had been hearing people speak. This child was hearing sounds in the environment. Already, this child had started developing speech and language. So if it happens that this child loses that ability to hear, when already he had been hearing, then this child here, this child who is deaf, is able to speak, because before he lost the power to hear, this child had been exposed to sounds. This child had been listening to people talking. This child was also learning to produce speech, because speech is acquired socially. As you hear other people speak, so you also speak. So the difference is, a person who is born with deafness, this person here obviously will not have speech. But if a person is born with normal hearing, and then maybe after acquiring speech and language at the age of 3, this child here maybe falls sick, and this sickness affects his ability to hear, or maybe through an accident or any condition that can interfere with his hearing, this deaf person will be able to speak because before he acquired the same, this person here had acquired language. So that is the difference. At what age the condition was acquired. If it was acquired at birth, this person here is not able to produce speech. But if at birth the child was okay, his hearing was okay, and then somewhere along the line a problem develops and then this child loses the ability to hear, then this child here is able to speak because already he had been exposed to environmental sounds. So in short, what I'm saying is age at onset determines whether a person will produce speech or not. Congenital, that is, you are born with it, no speech. But if it is postlingual, that is after acquiring language and then that condition comes, this person here is able to produce speech. I think at least now you can understand why some are able to speak and others are not able to speak. Thank you.